Hello everybody and welcome to the first video that I am calling Chump to Champ. Now the idea of these videos is to enlist the help of professionals, character specialists, streamers, anything like that to help me and yourself move to the next level in their fighting games career. So, many of us, like myself, have played for years and years and years. We've played in our bedrooms, played online and tournaments, and, I can safely say I've got a fair few, 2 and 2 and 3 and 3s. And I figured it's quite difficult for me to kind of move to that next level. And I figured, you know what, how do I do that? Practice mode can only get you so far. So, you know what? I thought, why don't I enlist the help of a professional? In today's episode, I've chosen the ever popular Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate. It's having a current resurgence of players online at the moment with the recent DLC additions, and I personally have found it a bit of a difficult situation and struggle to keep up online. So to assist that, I have managed to enlist a top tournament performer, streamer, and commentator extraordinaire. Hopefully I'll get my words out there. One half of the KandM duo, Smashes Mustard. Jake.
Hello.
Hello,
How's it
sir.
going? I'm happy to be here. Thanks for getting in touch.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you. How are you today?
I'm feeling good. I'm ready to chat about MK11. It's like you said, MK11 Ultimate is now out, so we've got some new characters, a big new version of the game, custom variations, and we'll talk into much more detail about all this, I'm sure. But the game's very different, so if you are looking to get into it, now is definitely a good time to kind of de-rust and brush up on that knowledge, and I will certainly do my best to help this transition.
You are an absolute superstar. Thank you very much, sir. So, as I mentioned, the idea of this show is to help you use your expertise to help me understand how to break through that ceiling. Give me the edge. Give me those secret tips. Give me those secret parts of the trade. And let's get to it, really. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask yourself first to kind of go through. I'm gonna take that anyone watching this video now will have an understanding of Mortal Kombat, but I would like you to give me a quick 5-minute run through of Mortal Kombat, what the mechanics are, and then we can use that as the basis moving forward, please, sir.
So MK11 is a very traditional Mortal Kombat game, and by that I mean like it is a very I think it's a very fundamental based fighting game where I know Mortal Kombat has had a bit of a reputation for being quite crazy and chaotic, and whilst MK11 can definitely be like that, it's a lot slower pace. I'd almost like compare it to like almost a Mortal Kombat 2, where the characters, they have a bit less moves, it's not quite as crazy, you haven't got like the run from MK3 and then the MKX kind of sprinting or anything like that, but you do have high damage combos and unique mechanics to MK11 that make a big difference in the game. So with that in mind, I would say that is the most important thing to really learn with MK11 is what makes this such a defining game for the franchise. And the big thing is those mechanics. So the crushing blows system, the fatal blows, which are the take on this game's X-rays, and things that are a bit more fundamental, right? Pokes, movement, jump-ins, reversals, counter pokes. Very much a lot of these terms that are kind of universal to a lot of fighting games are very present in MK11 and more important than ever.
Okay, so do you use those basics quite a lot?
In every game. A big part of MK11 overall is actually the movement, and we're using Rain today as this is the character that was requested previously, and to be honest, he does a really good job of summing up a lot of what you can do in the game. A big part of MK11 is the movement. So I mentioned before it's a bit slower. Ironically, we're showing Rain, who's one of the faster characters in the game, so you might not think so. But it's kind of traditional movement, right? MKX and other MKs much more known for the kind of like ability to run and sprint from full screen. MK11, it's much more about dashing, right? Forward dashes, back dashes. You are kind of just seeing how quickly Rain is traversing the screen, but also cancelling the movement. And that really is where it comes to taking your game to the next level, is an understanding of the mechanics, but how to really optimize them. So for example, you might think that you know how to dash around, but you need to know how to block dash, right? Where during a forward dash, you can interrupt at any point with any button. So if I do a forward dash, you'll see me do like, I can interrupt it with a standing one, a down one, or even a block. And that's where the block dash comes into play. So if we sit from full screen and I just keep doing forward dashes, you'll see how quickly I can get close to you, right? So it take me about 3 or 4 dashes, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 to really finish off. Now, 4 dashes to full screen to close range is really fine, but if you block dash, which is a it's a wave dash, it's a very traditional technique. where you cancel the forward dash with a block. Because you'll notice if I do a forward dash, it's like most of the momentum comes from the start of the dash, and then there's almost like a wind down near the very end of it, right? Where it's like most of the speed and then a little bit of a cooldown. You interrupt that cooldown with block right after the initial burst of the dash is done, and then you kind of repeat that. So if you do it right, you'll see if it doesn't take me too many attempts, I can get from full screen to close range very quickly. So let's see if I can do this. I mean, you'll see just how quickly I am covering the distance, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of instantly here within no time at all.
Hello.
That is a very important technique in MK11. Not every character moves like this, but as a general rule of thumb, it is always going to be faster to move by block dashing than it is to getting in normally.
Look at
as
that.
well as getting around projectiles. So a big element of your dash as well, you can cancel forward dashes with any button, which does include crouching buttons. So you'll notice if you start throwing projectiles at me, so if you go for the water ball, the back forward 2, right? This is a high, so I can crouch under it. Now, if you throw that and I forward dash and I try and crouch, you'll notice if I forward dash and hold down, there's a bit of a delay before the dash ends and I actually duck under. So if you're throwing projectiles like that, right? If you're throwing projectiles and I'm trying to dash under them, there is that delay, I'm going to get clipped. So if you interrupt a forward dash with a crouching poke instead, you'll notice I go into that crouching state instantly.
A lot quicker.
It's much like right there, right? It went over my head as opposed to me walking into it.
Yeah.
Movement is by far one of the most important things in this game because it's about the obvious of traversing the screen, but it's also about positioning, it's all about safety, and it's about getting to that optimal range that you want to play. And range in this game is absolutely important because footsies are a big, big deal.
What's a footsie?
So footsies are, for real, kind of lack of a better term, the act of kind of like knowing your ranges and what to play around. So for example, in MK11, a base example will be range down 4. And I guess I should explain what I mean by the numerical terminology. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 is just referring to the attack buttons. So based on the, you look at the face buttons, the attack buttons of your controller or stick, whatever you're using, these buttons mean, we use numbers to explain them. So no matter what kind of console or control method you're using, you'll always know. So in MK11, front punch is 1, back punch is 2, front kick is 3, and back kick is 4. So on a PlayStation pad, for example, square 1, triangle 2, X 3, and circle 4. So I will be using those today because that's just a lot easier to kind of know in the long run, and it's just a bit more straightforward for whatever console you're using. But back to the footsie's kind of real explanation. A real example in MK11 is, for example, a down 4. So down 4 is a long range poke that every character has. It will always be a low, and it will usually be like one of their longest range kind of individual buttons. So in footsies, if I hit a down 4, I am guaranteed a follow-up. So if I hit you with this, I'm going to hit you with this, and I just want you to hold up. So when you get hit by this, just hold up. You'll notice, thanks to the advantage, if I have the button right, there we go. You're trying to hold up, and you can't, because I have too much advantage when this hits, and if you try and hold up, I can see that hit, and if you are trying to jump, I can confirm it, and then if I do, I get a combo. It's really cool, and we're talking about a lot of damage for it, so
what are my options if after that footsie hitting? Is my only option to hold block?
Kind of yes and no. So this isn't what we would call a footsie. This is something you use in footsies. Footsies is the act of playing around your optimal range while trying to avoid your opponent's optimal range. So in the mirror match, for example, it's very interesting because you're playing around the same buttons. Like as a Rain player, I will know you're looking for those kind of like those best buttons, right? Whether it's a long range, this for a good mid, that's safe. Whether it's this that I can, the down 4 that I can stick out and confirm if I get that hit. Whether it's like, my faster option, so my standing 1 is a lot shorter range, so I'm going to want to kind of dance in this range while avoiding yours at the same time. But it's about trying to be optimal with your own options and avoiding theirs at the same time. So if we are using the down 4 as an example, if you do get clipped by this, on hit, if I am proper, I can hit this and guarantee and dash up and enforce a button before. So if you block, my turn's over, and now we're not really playing footsies anymore. We're playing the whole reversal mind game of
my turn,
I'm safe, but what am I going to do? Am I going to stagger? Am I going to continue my offense? Am I going to threaten a throw? But it's about, it all stems from that first hit. Because if you're playing the neutral game and you're playing for footsies, and you effectively get clipped by something, you've lost the footsie game, but it doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get hurt a lot. It changes your options on the fly, and you have to be able to keep up with it.
Okay. Does every character have good footsies? And is most characters based around a good footsie range? Is Mortal Kombat the kind of game that would kind of have, right, this character has good footsies, or this character has good zoning? Like, is it a very generic game in that respect?
So it is a game of archetypes. You do have different kind of characters really covered from start to finish. You have characters that are long range, they're built around projectiles. You have characters that are much stubbier button wise, but they're amazing up close, and they can go for either straight up mix ups, or they've got command grabs, or some characters have more health, some characters have less health. It really just does depend on the character. But MK11 is a bit more vague in that sense, where you do have archetypes, but not as many characters are built for that. It's more that thanks to the variation system, where you can pick and choose what moves you want, you can really have a lot of creativity as to how you want characters to be. You know, if you want to make a character built for close range, there are probably moves you can equip to make them that. If there are characters that you want to be about long range, you might be able to equip more projectiles, or maybe they've got teleports and repositioning tools that you can equip instead. It really comes down to what you want to equip on those characters, and the variation system of MK11 is, I would say, the most important thing for that, and most characters can benefit in that way.
So I think that's actually a good point to move into, is that you said you can equip moves. Now, what do you explain what you mean by equip moves? You know, how do you equip a move?
So MK11 features a custom variation system, which is appropriate to talk about now because it's actually just become the tournament standard. So for the longest time, MK11 has had variations, very MKX style, where there are different variations with different specials and attacks that might be exclusive to that variation, so you can play the same character in different ways. In MK11, for a year and a half, we have had pre-made tournament variations from NetherRealm, where every character on paper has a bunch of moves that you can pick and choose and create on the fly. You have 3 move slots. If I pause, I can show you what we've got for this one, for example. This variation of Rain has... the one I have equipped is Waterball, and you can see on the screen it says equipped ability move. This is not a move you have as a base. You have to select this and it gives it to you. Same thing for this move here, Geyser Palm. You equip the move and you get it in addition, or sometimes it will replace an additional move, or existing move I should say, depending on its input or what it does. So Waterball is a equipped move that gives you new properties and new combo potential and a lot of range, but it replaces his default projectile. So he actually has a normal projectile that you don't get if you have this move, but that's the trade-off.
Right, so there's some moves that conflict with others.
Exactly, yeah. Now, not every move will conflict. Like, for example, this move I've got, Geyser Palm, this is a launcher, so if I, knock you into the air, I can hit this and I can extend a combo, and it's really cool. He doesn't have that normally, so you can just equip that, give that to yourself, give you more versatility. But that's the real point. Up until now, it's been pre-made variations, where these equipped moves, NetherRealm have created variations for use in tournament play. Now, thanks to the MK11 Ultimate update, you can create your own variations. So when you make a variation, you start with like an empty, almost like an empty template of nothing, and then you get to equip up to 3 slots worth of moves. Most moves will take 1 slot, some of the stronger moves will take 2, and there are very rare ones that take all 3. As a general rule of thumb, you'll equip 2 or 3 moves based on what character you're doing to really build a character to be played the way that you want. And that is really important. I would say the most important thing about the game currently, because with that comes a lot of knowledge. You have to be aware of what moves the characters have, what combinations they are, because every character will change a lot with even one move being different.
So how do you equip yours? Do you have a specific kind of set? Do you have a projectile? Do you have a long range? Do you have an anti-air? How do you normally equip your 2 or 3 slots?
So for me, I look at the way I want that character to play, and I equip moves accordingly. So some players will stick to what's familiar. They will almost create variations based on moves they were already using, just in a way that is, something they are used to. Some players are being very, they're being very experimental, and they're going for complete wacky variations. What I like to do is I have my own kind of preferred way of playing fighting games. So I'm very setup heavy, right? I like setup characters. I like pressure moves. If I can get a hit and then turn that hit into, I've ended a combo or I've ended something, and now there is something on screen. So let's say I've got a hit and I've got a character that sets up a trap, right? So I'll get the hit, turn that hit into the trap. So we go back to neutral, but I've got a trap on the screen. So I've got that kind of advantage, whether it's a bomb, whether it's, a tool, like a setup thing, whatever it may be. That's the way I love playing fighting games. So if a character is capable of having that kind of built-in mix-up that kind of helps me open you up in addition to my own abilities, I really like that. So the characters that I play, like Fujin, Frost, Kano, if they have kind of built-in mix-ups or setup potential that I can equip, that's what I tend to favor.
That's you. That's how you like to favor it.
Exactly, and thanks to customs, I can now do that with the characters I play, because they not every character can do that because they might not have specific moves, but every character can be customized in that way.
To that.
Not every character. It's not like there's just a list of moves that they all have. Like every character has a setup tool, every character has a good projectile, every character has a teleport. It's not like that. It's still character to character as a case, but you will have a lot more options than normal at the very least.
Now you can create these custom variations to go into tournaments. What are the pitfalls of that? You know, that could end up being quite crazy. There could be, you know, a variation that could be really that could really go against the other character. What kind of pitfalls do you see of custom variations now being introduced to the game?
So custom variations definitely weren't received with unanimous positivity. I think there's definitely arguments to be made for and against them, but a lot of them now we've had, like, I think it's almost like 2.5 going into 3 weeks now. I've seen customs competitively. We're definitely not seeing the craziness that people were worried about. Really, to be honest, with pre-made variations, most characters ended up having a best variation anyway, with the exception of some characters, you know, that have a second variation that you could use situationally, but you would end up swapping a lot, right? We're talking completely different, like no competitive variation before would share abilities. So for example, one rain variation, the one you're equipped right now is actually a pre-made variation. So the one you have has the weather ball, and if you press down back 3, you have a tidal wave, which is like a safe special that you can do on block. With previous variations, this would be the only rain variation that had both of those moves. So if you liked this variation for the weather ball, and then you had a matchup where you needed something that wasn't tidal wave. Let's say that weather ball was good, but tidal wave wasn't, and you wanted something else. If you wanted to swap away from tidal wave, you had to change variations completely. So you would change to not have tidal wave, but you would also lose the weather ball, which is something you actually wanted to keep, right? And that was the thing with you know, pre-patch variations, where most characters would have a main variation that would see all the time, and there'd be often a second that was situationally good, and some characters did have 3, but it was much more of a case-by-case basis. Now, some characters do have most popular loadouts, to be sure, but it's not a question of, you know, if you don't want that loadout, you have to completely change, right? So let's say you've got 3 moves equipped. 2 of those 3 moves you consider core, and you will want 90% of the time. Against the 10% that you need something else, you can just swap that 3rd move. So you have like your shell of moves, and then a utility move.
So you got your core that will then back up. But do you think that we're going to see? Do you think we're going to see counter variations to characters? So, you know, like you just said beforehand, you know, pre this patch, we saw many a tournament with the same version of Sonya or the same version of Liu Kang. Are we going to see now counter variations to specific variations, and then we're going to see people just bouncing back and forth just to basically beat that variation?
I actually hope that we see variations exist as a, you know, as like a counter pick almost, because I love character specialist. I love it when people become character specialists, and to me, the custom variation system really helps that, because as we would see a lot in MK11, where someone would have a main character and they would love that character, but they would just have a matchup that none of the existing tournament variations would help, and that wasn't great, because you'd see them have to swap away from the character, and then it becomes a counter pick fest, and the hidden cursor becomes a really common thing. And most players, if they played a character that wasn't so good, or maybe they had some rough matchups, would have to go into a tournament with like 2 or 3 and sometimes 4 characters just to make sure that they weren't getting counter picked super hard. With custom variations, I would like to think that you can go, because you can make up to 5 custom variations. Now, for any character, 5 loadouts should be more than enough to cover anything you could need.
Correct.
And as that's the case, you should, in theory, on paper, be able to pick any of those 5 variations for the time. Now, not to say that it eliminates bad matchups, because, you know, it's a fighting game, right? It isn't going to work that way all the time, but you are in much more control than you normally would be over what your character is capable of doing. So let's say you have a variation that has a really strong combo tool that takes 2 slots, and then the 3rd slot is a decent projectile. And then you're against a character that projectile just doesn't work because they have an immunity to it. Maybe they've got a teleport, maybe their projectile is faster and yours never wins the zoning war. So you want to swap that good projectile for maybe a move that's safe on block. So you're really built for that close range. So if you are in and you can throw this move out for safety that maybe you otherwise don't have, it gives you that extra utility to go, right, instead of changing away from my character completely, I'm just going to change the variation, keep what I like about the character, but swap to something that's a bit more bearable for the matchup. And that is my favorite thing about it.
That's the best thing about it.
Character special splits get to thrive, and they are in complete control, much more so than previously.
Do you think that will hinder other people moving towards other characters? For example, one of the issues I had in the game was I couldn't quite figure out the right character for me, and I went around a lot of characters, and I think I ended up settling on Melina. It's the reason why I actually got back into Mortal Kombat, in all honesty. Melina, Jade, and Jax. If you now have that one variation for that one person, do you run the risk of then not really experimenting with other characters?
I mean, I wouldn't really say that's the thing on the mechanic. I feel like that's just down to the player.
The player,
because if you, I mean, I know a lot of people that they'll pick up a fighting game, they'll play one character, and that's the only one they ever use in that game for years, right? Like, some people just have that dedication. But for those that play a game a considerable amount, even if they have a main in tournament or whatever, they will still probably just play other characters for fun, right? Whether it's casually, whether it's with friends, maybe it's like experiment for secondaries if they need it. I don't see the customs really stopping that, because if anything, if you are looking to play other characters, you now, again, will have the opportunity to play those characters in as much of an exact way as you do your main. So to be honest, I feel like it's almost the opposite, where having so much creativity with every character almost would, in theory, make players want to play others, because now you get to play them in ways you never could before.
Yeah, you can open
in ways
up.
That you just have a lot more options, right? More creativity and more ability to really make a character play the way you want to. And if they can't do that, then I'm sure there's another character that can.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because that for me was one of my issues, was definitely with Jade. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what her best tools would be, and making my own variations for offline play. But when it came to any kind of online or any tournament play, I was stuck with some of the variations where I wasn't really interested in them.
Now, here's definitely a point I will say to that, which is, I think with a lot more creativity does mean for a lot more confusion, because it's more knowledge, right? Like, more options is great if you already know what there is and you know how to play a character and what exists already. So it's not as much to kind of like slot those new moves into what you already know. If you are coming in fresh, I can definitely see it being a bit daunting, when it's like there's a lot more knowledge that you need.
Yeah.
So there's more moves to learn. There's a lot more. You're already learning what a character can do fundamentally, and now there's all these extra moves as well. So it's a lot more to take in.
So how would you kind of decompartmentalize that? How would you, to new characters or returning characters coming back into this game, players, sorry, how would you kind of make your way through that confusion, so to speak?
So if you are coming back to MK11, like you already played it and you are coming back because of Ultimate, I would go with what you already knew and see how the new features of customs can fit into that. For example, let's say you're playing Jade. So let's say you're playing Jade and you are used to playing Emerald Defender, which is the very projectile heavy variation of Jade, where you get the Edenian Spark, which is the ground projectile, you get the air glaive, and you get the upwards glaive toss. Yep. So if you used to play that, you can probably take that variation, look at which of the three moves maybe you use the least. So let's say maybe you use a lot of the air glaive because it's really strong and has good plus frames and it's a really strong move overall. Let's say you use a lot of the Edenian Spark, so you use a lot of the low fireball because it's just a really strong projectile. Let's say you use a lot of the air projectile, and they are the two moves you mainly use. And if you're being honest, maybe it's like, okay, I don't use the up glaive very much. I would take that variation into customs, take away the up glaive, and then one move at a time, try out the new moves.
Yep.
So take what you already knew and change that slightly.
Just slightly
going
alter
in
it.
Like, okay, new patch, all these customs, I'm starting from scratch, everything's empty, I'm piecing everything together, and I'm just take this move from there and that move from there, and then nothing seems to really work together. Take what you already knew and what was familiar, and see how the new moves might be able to fit into that,
So
as opposed to completely starting from scratch.
One at a time, just incremental changes.
Slow and steady. Slow and steady is absolutely the most important thing, because at the end of the day, you need the knowledge. So you're going to have to look at them. You're going to have to look at these moves and see what's possible. But you want to kind of walk while you're doing it instead of a full sprint. Right? Like, learn it slowly, Otherwise, it will be overwhelming.
Yeah,
and
it'd
if
be
you're
quite
at least
daunting.
starting with something you already knew, so a character you already played, a variation you already played, you are at least going to be somewhat familiar.
Yeah, you can at least hit the ground running. Okay, good. Exactly what I hear. So does this game does it reward? There are some games, for example, Tekken, where obviously, if you get hit, you get countered, you can get hurt, but it does reward risk. It does reward taking a risk. Does this game reward risk, and does it balance out?
I definitely think, and to be honest, this might be quite a controversial opinion considering what a lot of you'll see on Twitter. I think this game has a tremendously fair risk-reward system, and by that I mean the strongest tools often do have something to hold them back. So, for example, crushing blows are a new mechanic to MK11. For those of you that have already played, you'll be familiar, but I'll give an absolute quick TLDR for those of you that might be a bit new. Crushing blows are a new mechanic to MK11 where certain moves, when they connect in certain scenarios, will have new properties and a big cinematic kind of zoom in, right? So a quintessential one is Rain. So Rain's forward 2 grab 4 is a cool string like this, right? Starts off the mid, does 140 damage, decent chunk of damage. Now, if this counter hits, so for example, if you just whiff a throw, if you just miss a throw for me, right, if you just keep whiffing, I'll try and whiff punish. Right, there's a counter hit, or punish it should say. A lot of moves in the game will do this. So if I look at that move right here, the forward 2, which should be on this side. Here we go. So, when Mortals Cry, this is the forward 2 grab. Crushing Blow. When this attack triggers as a counter or punish, it will Crushing Blow. And as you can see, if I do it again, the Crushing Blow of this is... I did it wrong, hang on. There we go. The Crushing Blow is a tremendous amount of damage. So from 140 to 317, it's like over double the damage. Now, Crushing Blows can only connect once per game. Not round, game. So I can only do this Crushing Blow once a game. Another popular one are a lot of characters will have their throws. So forward and back throw will Crushing Blow. If the opponent fails a throw escape beforehand. So, for example, if you, I'm going to do a forward throw on you. So I want you to tech this throw with 1. So when I grab you with this, just keep pressing 1, and it will be a fake. It'll be a false tech. So there you go. So escape failed. It came up on the left-hand screen. So now, if you don't tech a throw in any way, and I just hit you with a throw, now my throw will do 300 damage. So your throw goes from 130 to 300. And again, only used once. And it's each Crushing Blow can be used once. So I can only do this one, the mid once per game, and the throw once per game, and any other Crushing Blow that your character has.
So do you...
Now,
sorry,
go ahead.
Do you tend to hold those back? Can you hold those back? Or do you tend to kind of get him in early doors to get him used, or do you kind of say, right, you know what, I'm not really having much success this round, or I'm down on health, time to activate some of my Crushing Blows?
Crushing Blow management is arguably one of the most important things in MK11, because these are one-time uses, and as you can see, the damage is incredible on them. And the utility, they don't all just do an extra amount of damage. Some of them will give new properties. So, for example, if you, my uppercut does 140 damage, and it just knocks you down. If you whiff a throw right in front of me, the Crushing Blow uppercut launches, so it turns it into a big launcher opportunity. So that's not a flat damage increase, it's a launch, and that will lead to a lot of damage as well. But again, because this all can be used once, and it is a game changer because of it, holding these back, and a big thing as well, like this is a bit more basic, but I very recommend it. I can't show it in the online menu, but in the options menu in the controls, there is something called Crushing Blow held check, where
yes.
By default, Crushing Blows will activate automatically. So if you have that already, so if you crouch, we'll see if you have it on. I'm going to whiff a grab, and when I whiff it, I just want you to uppercut me. So just do it down. There you go. So did you tap that or hold it?
I tapped it.
Okay, so it will be on. So by default, Crushing Blows, if they can happen, will happen automatically. So if their requirement is met, it would just Crushing Blow instantly, and that is the end of it. What you absolutely should be doing if you want to take this game seriously is turn on Crushing Blow held check. What that means is when the move hits its Crushing Blow requirement, the move has to be held. So if I want to, like, if you whiff a grab in front of me and I tap, it won't do it, right? Because I haven't held the button. But if I hold the button, Oh, hang on, I have to restart it. So, okay, so if I tap the button, nothing. If I hold the button, crushing blow. Being able to get these exactly when you want them and not automatically is, I cannot stress enough how important that is. Because there will be situations that you don't want to launch them. Maybe you don't need the extra damage. Maybe you'd rather save it for the next round. Maybe you're down on life. Maybe you've got a comeback to make, and you don't think you can make it in that round. But with crushing blows, you could win the next one, right? And these one-time resources cannot be wasted.
And they're vital.
Because if they are wasted, you are going to put yourself seriously at a disadvantage.
So that kind of moves me actually on with that crush and blow management onto meter management. So are you...
So actually, but before we talk about meter, that's actually why the reason I mentioned crushing blows is the risk. So we talked about how I think that risk reward is really well balanced. So in MK11, crushing blows being the most important thing, a lot of them are by design a risk. So the reason I have you whiffing a grab to kind of be the go-to whiff punish is grabs in MK11 are incredibly strong. This is a game that is fundamentally built, like it's a real big part of its meta is the strike throw mind game. So you can't tech throws while you're blocking, and this game has 50-50 throw techs. So 2 or 4 will tech a front throw, and 1 or 3 will tech a back throw. That does mean that by design, really, every throw when mid-screen is probably a 50-50 most of the time for characters, because some characters will have like one direction of the throw will give them pressure, and you'll be close enough to get, something as you get off the ground. But a character like Rain, both his forward throw and his back throw leave at full screen. So Rain isn't close enough to guarantee a button as you get up, so you can't do throw loops or anything like that. But he does have crushing blow throws tied to an escape failed throw tech. Now, that means that he is basically going to be 50-50ing you with throws whenever he does. But should you take a throw wrong, you're going to be taking a tremendous amount of damage because the crushing blow. But when I have a throw crushing blow ready, that becomes a danger because, like I said, you can't tech throws while blocking, so you might not block as much. And because throws are high, if you just crouch and just do a normal duck, just a normal crouch, they're highs, so they actually can just be ducked. If you just hold down and don't block, it will just keep going over your head. But if you crouch block, the throw will hit you and you can't tech it. So when you have an escape failed crushing blow ready, this becomes a huge mind game of point blank, am I going to throw you? Or am I going to read that you're going for a duck and hit you with a mid that you can't crouch, right? So it becomes a really dangerous mind game. Now, because so many crushing blows in this game, like most characters have one where if a move connects as a counter hit, or not even without a crushing blow, it leaves you vulnerable. So if you whiff a grab in front of me and hold block, you see the recovery, right? So if you go for a grab and then you block, there's a lot of recovery to it. So even if I don't have a crushing blow, you're going to try and throw me for 130 damage. But if I read the throw, I'm going to be punishing you for considerably more than that. But throws doing 130 damage means that they are a big chunk of health. The crushing blow tied to them means that they're even more scary. And most characters can really play around that kind of... It's called a strike throw mind game, where it's, do I go for a strike and hit you? Or do I go for a throw when you're blocking? And that's the situation you have to worry about. Because the throw element, like throws are stronger than they've ever been in this game, but because they have such a huge risk attached to them, because you don't even have to duck them. Like if I think you're going to throw, so for example, if you do, try this for a sec. So if you go for 1-3-3 on block, and I'll turn on frame data so we can actually see this. If you go for that on block, so you notice the whole string it's -3. It's barely minus. So it's definitely minus, but it's not that minus. The fastest button in this game is 6 frames, so -3 isn't that bad. If you go for 1-3 on block and then go for a throw, you'll notice... Sorry, if I block it and then I'll just duck after. If I read a throw, I can just duck underneath and then, get a combo for it. Or one step above, I can neutral jump. And if you go for a throw, I read a throw, that's punishable as well. And a jump in can turn into a full, combo for a lot of damage based on what your character can do. Range damage is fairly average, and even he does enough to really deter you from just constantly going for it. And this kind of throw mind game of throws being very powerful, but there's a lot of counterplay to them based on what you're doing. That is a big deal because a lot of the options in this game are tied to that. Where, for example, Rain as another example, his counter hit string. So you might think, why don't you just fish for this mid all the time and get the counter hit? Get the counter hit if it goes for the KB. it's an unsafe string. So if you go for it, it's forward 2 grab, so forward 2 1+3. On block, it's -15. That's very unsafe in this game. So a lot of these high reward, high damage crushing blow options for a lot of characters are actually unsafe or dangerous to do in general. They can be heavily whiff punished, or they're not something you can kind of just throw out for the sake of it. But because of how important they are, you might be tempted to try and build a requirement for it, because some of them take building, like for example, Liu Kang bicycle kick, you have to hit it like 3 times amplified before, or Sub-Zero slide, you have to amplify it twice before. Like some of them take a long time to build, and then when you get them ready, the dynamic completely changes. But a lot of them do have quite a heavy risk attached to them if you're going for them in a very careless way.
Right. So how do you build yours up? Do you kind of chip away at them and then make them think that, you know what, I'm going to throw it out, I'm going to throw it out, I'm not going to throw it out, I'm just going to wait there for a second and bang,
it is absolutely character dependent. And I know I keep saying that about a lot of the questions, but it really is like that for characters in this game where, for example, Liu Kang and Sub-Zero, they are very much characters built around those crushing blows, and we tend to call them like round 3 characters, where if they get to round 3 and they have built those crushing blows, so for example, a character like Sub-Zero, his main crushing blow is his slide. If he amplifies it twice, his 3rd amplified slide will then crushing blow for like 30% by itself. So it's a massive damage combo ender. It's a good whiff punish tool because Sub-Zero slide is always really fast, but it takes him 3 hits at least to go, and you have to spend bar, and you have to spend your meter to do it. But once you have it ready, Sub-Zero becomes a lot scarier. Same thing for like Liu Kang and other characters that have to build it up. But the most important thing though is just awareness. So you have to be not only aware of what your character's crushing blows are, you have to know what your opponent's are as well.
Yeah,
because you cannot get caught out. Like if your opponent has crushing blow throws, you have to know about it, because it completely changes the game.
100%, yeah, because you're going to be worried about approaching them knowing that they've got something on stock. I think that was where I got quite a lot of success with Jax with, because a lot of his, you know what, don't get me wrong, I can't remember the moves, but the overhead, I think it was forward 2 to the throw with the crushing blow.
No, that is right. He's a very snowball crushing blow focused character where he builds up heat and he can do crushing blow forward throw, crushing blow forward 2 into extended buttons, command grab, like. And when he is a character that has those ready to go, he is a monster.
It was absolutely painful,
so dangerous.
Yeah, he see that's what made the game fun for me, because then it gave a different element to the game. It was more, right, when am I going to do it? Am I going to do it now, or do I just keep chipping away and then wait, like they say, wait for the 3rd round where you can just unleash them and then just get that win in, just seal the round. So,
but that's also where the knowledge comes into play too, because Jax is a great example, because not only is he a crushing blow focused character, he also has heat. A unique mechanics to him, where the more punches he connects, the more his arms heat up and he gets access to projectiles, or in this case, crushing blows he can do. But he's also a character that when he hits his fatal blow, which is a really fast, amazing whip punisher, high damage. When he hits Fatal Blow, he ends with max heat.
Which
means that, and he gets his Fatal Blow gives him a guaranteed button on Meaty as well. So he genuinely goes into like, he can hit a Fatal Blow raw for 300 damage. His arms get max heat, and then he's threatening Meaty forward grab, 30% turns into 60 because it crushing blows. It could be a mid because you expect they're going to duck the grab, and that turns into 300 damage, and then the snowball begins to roll. But you need to know, right? You need to be aware of what his crushing blows are and how he's building towards them. Because if you don't know, you will absolutely just get annihilated.
Then you're in trouble. And again, that's a massive point of, again, this whole series, this whole Chump to Champ series, is understanding not only about your character, but what also the other characters doing as well.
Very
I think
important.
that's an extremely important part. And then that moves again back into the next point I want to mention. Is meter management. It's understanding exactly what you have on deck. Now, I'm a character that once I've got meter, I'm using it instantly. I do not care. I want to use it. I want to burn it. I want to get it back again. Especially with characters like Jade, using Nitro Kick twice and double air glaive, all that sort of stuff. Are you the kind of character that holds meter and then uses it now and then, or do you kind of use meter, twice in one move, so to speak?
So for me, it depends on what it's doing for me. Meter in MK11 is unique in the sense that it comes back automatically, but it does not always come back at the same speed. For example, you have 2 bars of offense, 2 bars of defense. If you amplify a special move to get its extra effects, that will cost a bar of offense, and a lot of your wake up and defensive options will cost defensive bar rate. So in this instance, I spent a bar on that to do a lot of damage. So if I have bar to extend a combo, I'm always going to do it, because why not? It will come back very fast, and in some cases it will regenerate, and by the time the combo's finished, it's half back or a bit of the way back.
We're on the way there anyway.
But then some characters, you know, for example, Kung Lao's Orbiting Hat or Fujin's Skywalk cancels, there are moves that, even though they're very meter intensive on paper, those bars regenerate very fast. So you'll actually notice that you're not really spending that much at all. But then, for example, the absolute polar opposite is if I knock you down, right? I'll do a jump kick to launch you, and then I just want you to break away. So the breakaway input is down plus block while you're in a juggle state on the way down. So I hit with the jump kick. If you break away, there you go. Now look at your bar. This is the slowest form of meter regeneration in the game. Breakaway takes just shy of 40 seconds to come back when it's gone. And without defensive bar, no wake-up attacks, no wake-up roll, no flawless block attacks, no environment interactions, and some moves need defensive bar to be cancelled or whatever it may be. And you'll notice it's only halfway back and it's still going. It is super important to know how long your bar will come back based on what's going on. For example, if I'm going to lose a round and I think a comeback is possible, but I'm not sure, to break away to get out of a hit that would normally kill you to make that comeback, if it doesn't go well and you're left in the final round without defensive bar, you are at a severe disadvantage.
Yeah, good luck with that.
But you have to know how fast it all comes back, right? Whether it's something worth doing. And then on the flip side, because bar comes back automatically and it doesn't stop for anything, you can literally end round 1 by spending a bar. You've got, round 2 fight, the characters walk back, they do the little animations of retreating. By the time you actually resume the next round, you've probably built back most of the bar you spent to end it. So with those situations, that's where meter management is really important. Because if you're going to kill with something, go ahead. But if it's a waste to do so, probably not. It really does take knowledge of your situation and whether it's worth spending. Because you can do it to swag out. There are brutalities that are tied to certain amplified moves, and you can do cool combos. Like, for example, Rain is actually a good example. So I'll see if I can do these without dropping them too much. But Rain's Water Ball is a move that can be amplified twice for different juggles. So it is your kind of go-to, for the variation I've got at least, it's your kind of go-to punish option. So if I hit you for 1 bar, I can do, let's see if I can get this combo. I'll do a very basic version of it. So 1 bar, I'm looking at 293, just shy of 30% damage. Not bad for 1 bar. Or I can extend, so for a 2nd bar, I can go from, actually, how much was this? I've already forgotten. So from 1 bar to 293, so let's just say 290. 1 bar, 290, not terrible damage, I'd say pretty average, but definitely not bad at all. I can extend it for a 2nd bar. So from 290, it becomes 350. So I'm looking at an extra bar spent for 6% extra damage, give or take. That's far from optimal, there is more you can do, but as a general base, you're looking at, not a massive amount of meter increase, but because it was a long combo, I've already built one of the bars back pretty much almost straight away, right? It does come back pretty fast. However, just because I can do more damage with 2 bars doesn't mean I might always want to, because we can do 290 or 350 with 2 bars, or I can have it for a reset. So let's say I spend 1 bar on 1 combo, and instead of the full knockdown, I do something like this. Let's say I do this. So I spend a bar on 1 hit. I'll try this again because I am probably going to drop it to online training mode. So 1 bar spent on this for 290, and let's say I get a meaty, same thing again.
Yep. So
from 290, it then becomes 290 into 270. So that becomes, because I saved the bar and I didn't spend it, both hits on a combo. Let's say you were expecting a grab on wake up and I just hit you with a mid and turned it into that.
That's 290.
290 becomes 290 twice.
Yeah.
Because 290, then I get a meaty mid, I confirm it into a button, and then 290 becomes double damage because I spent it on a reset instead.
So you're saying that 2 bars is either going to be swag or round ending, but personally, you are the sort of person that would happily get 2 290s.
Yeah, and I feel like under most circumstances that would be the case. The exception being if that 2nd bar spent is adding towards crushing blows and things like that. For example, Liu Kang's bicycle kick, the requirement being amplify 3 times, and then the 4th normal bicycle kick you hit will crushing blow for 300 damage. So Liu Kang players will often, they'll just do something basic like, string into bicycle kick, and then they will amp the bicycle kick twice for like pathetic damage, but it's 2 hits towards a very important crushing blow, so it's not bad. Especially if it's like early in the match, where spending that bar, I mean, you've got the whole game for it to come back. So spend it early, get towards those important requirements, and then you're laughing for the rest
And
of
away
the
you
game.
go. Yeah. Yeah, I'm liking that. You see, that was always my problem is, especially with, you know, when you're also learning a character as well, is you tend to use bar just raw, you know, especially with Jade, you know, double glaive in the air, useful for stopping people coming in, but you know, I believe for people to move on to that next level is to understand exactly how to use it and when to use it, and not to throw it out willy-nilly, especially
Well,
breaking down.
people using bar on projectiles is definitely nothing new either. Because when bar comes back by itself, I mean, if you're far away, it doesn't really matter if you're throwing it out. Because as long as you've got something for when you inevitably need it,
Yep.
it's not really the end of the world. Because if you're, Jade being an example where her air glaive amplifier is so massively plus on block, and she is already quite annoying to advance on in the neutral, you can definitely spend bar on it. Because by the time they come close, you've probably built a bar back again, right?
Yeah.
It's just a question of not wasting it. That as long as you're not throwing it away for no reason, you can pretty much excuse using it.
Good. Okay, good. Excellent. First of all, fantastic breakdown. I'm, again, just in this last half an hour, just little bits and pieces that I've taken away from this session has been really, really useful. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
No, it's super easy. No worries. I love this game. I'm happy to talk about it. No
Oh,
problem.
you're a star. So I've just got a couple of questions that I would like you to answer, and they're called In Your Opinion, yeah? And this
Sure.
is just your perspective, okay? And this is about the current state of Mortal Kombat, a little bit about the FGC, and a little about yourself, actually. So, first question is, who do you think right now is the most underrated player? Globally. Anyone. UK, America, Africa, wherever.
So I'm actually going to be really biased, and I actually do think that one of the most underrated players that I've seen in MK11 is a UK guy, Josh TQ. He is a really kind of like modern, up-and-coming player from the UK. He's the younger brother of Video Games Yo, who is a really well-established player in the community, who's also new to competition. Less than a year of, I'd say about a year of competing under his belt by now. But his younger brother really has become a player that has gone from strength to strength very quickly, to the point that he's winning like major events online within the European community, right? Stacked events with the best players around this part of the world, and the grind, right? It's both him. I would say both him and his brother, Video Games Yo. The two of them are definitely, I would say, two of the most slept on players across the board. I think VGY less, because a lot of people are definitely getting a bit woke to how good he is, but I think Josh TQ. It's going to sound biased because I'm from the UK, but I mean, I can't help it. That is genuinely how I feel.
Mr. Back your own, mate. Back your own. That's what I say. Who do you think So you would say he's the future contender, but who do you think is definitely someone who's not quite there yet, but they're on their way?
So that is a more difficult question because I feel like a lot of players are
On the cusp.
kind of also in that boat where it is an ever growing kind of like grind for them, especially now when online events are going to be the standard for the foreseeable. I actually need a few minutes to think about this. So it's a player that is on the way. I'm seeing the improvement of.
Yeah, so you think a few more tournament positions, a bit more experience on the circuit, and you believe that they will be the next contender.
To be completely honest, I honestly feel like that's the same answer. I feel like Josh TQ is the same in that situation where, I mean, it's almost for the exact same reasons, right? Where he is a player that I think is capable of that. We just need to see him be able to compete more so he can prove it. Because I think with what he's been able to enter, it's been marvelous. He just hasn't done it enough on like the real mainstream stage.
On the big scene.
I definitely think it's the same answer. I definitely think so.
Yep. Okay. And that moves on to the next part. Is obviously during this pandemic we haven't had a lot of opportunity to get together and and do what we used to do. I popped down to Firebuck a few times, said a quick hello. Tournaments are non-existent right now, so obviously they're doing it online. Do you think companies and TOs are doing enough to keep the scene alive? And if they are, if they're not, what do you think can be done?
I think TOs are doing everything possible. I absolutely do not envy any major event because we saw last year alone, Combo Breaker had to be cancelled,
Painful.
Evo was cancelled, CEO was cancelled, and then Europe, Vianality versus firing, like anything that was meant to happen didn't. There are countless events, and I mean, we know how it is. That's not cheap. You know, we definitely saw organizers lose out on a considerable amount of money because, you know, venues were hired and, you know, merchandise was ordered and made, and, you know, all that preparation going in to not being allowed to do it. You know, there was considerable cost to that, and I
100%.
really do feel bad for organizers that were in that situation. And also the venues, right? A lot of scenes have lost their venues because the venue was a bar or a pub or like a gaming center that isn't making enough to keep the doors open. And you know, even when things are finished, they're going to have to find a new venue. So I really don't think there is any fault on the shoulders of organizers right now, because I think it is genuinely what we do can't happen at the moment
100%.
because of the pandemic and because of the risks attached to it and the fact that it is being such a, you know, it is a danger to the world. And I think until things are safer, I really do think that people have done the sensible thing, the difficult thing, no doubt, but the sensible thing to, you know, keep things at home for now, do it online until things go back.
Good.
I feel like a lot of organizers have done online things in this, you know, in place of it. I think a lot of major events are like, look, let's just try some online cups instead. Let's do locals online. You see NLBC online all the time. There's a lot of UK scenes that do online stuff. Like, I think what they're trying to keep things going. I think they're doing a good job.
Good. And I think that's the key, isn't it? Is to keep is use your passion to keep things moving forward, to keep things going, to keep the community galvanized, because, you know, it's on the way, but there will be an opportunity again when we can come back, we can do what we can do what we enjoy, we can get back, we can actually sit next to a player and play again. It seems like it's a million miles away at the moment, but this is where online needs to shine, I think, and the introduction of this reviewed netcode has really helped things, I think, especially for Tekken.
Mortal Kombat, and I've actually said this a lot, and I'm definitely not, you know, shying away from saying this point whenever I get the chance. I think the Mortal Kombat community is incredibly lucky. I think the fact that our netcode is, I think it's a mixture of luck and the devs really doing what they needed to do when they needed to do it. So a very quick history lesson. MK had the worst netcode I'd ever played in a fighting game for a long time. MK9, Injustice 1, MKX for the first year and a half. It was delay based and it was miserable. Like game sessions disconnecting. Just it felt like netcode from like the PS2 era. You know what I mean? It felt like it just didn't translate really well to modern times. However, online tournaments were a big thing. You know, we had the MKX Pro League, and there came a point that NetherRealm said enough is enough. We're going to overhaul everything. We're going to go to delay-based netcode. They had, you know, I don't know the specifics, but it was an expensive and time-consuming process. And now we have some of the best netcode in all of fighting games.
Amen.
And because of that, online tournaments are possible. And we're seeing prize money and, you know, a lot of companies investing in the online space. You know, we've had Open Series with PlayStation, weekly prize money for Europe and North America for 6 months. Community events every week. There are you know, commentators and teams doing their own things across the world. And now Pro Competition Season 2 is announced, and that's going until at least May. So there's been, like, ever since lockdown began to now, and at the very earliest, May next year, there's regular tournaments, and there always has been. And it's because there's a lot to play in, the netcode allows for it, and there is enough people putting in the effort to keep these events coming for the community to enjoy. And I love it.
Good. That's fantastic to hear, especially during this time as well. And I think this is, you know, with the game, with Ultimate Mortal Kombat coming out recently, I personally see a lot more challenge, a lot more. I see a lot more online, a lot more possibility on PC, because it's actually usually the PC that I'll play on. But it just seems a bit more varied now. Whereas, you know, I'd see the same people online over and over again. There just seems to be a lot more out there, and I'm hoping that this can continue, to be honest.
Yeah, I definitely think that online player bases are seeing just an improvement across the board, where because everyone's playing online, the level of play online is definitely going up, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to play, it's online or nothing right
well,
now.
exactly that. Now's the best time to play. I think this is the best time for me to learn as well, to be in all honesty. Who would you think the strongest character is right now? A lot of debate about that at the moment.
It is definitely a toss-up. I don't know if I can definitively give a number one, but it is looking like the top tiers are, to be honest, very similar to the way they were before. The big gameplay change of customs is that every character benefited from customs, and there weren't that many individual character changes balance-wise, but that has meant that at least early impressions, the tier list isn't looking that much different. So you've still got the, like, for me, like my personal top 5
In
no
your
order
opinion,
is, like,
in your
Jackie,
opinion.
Cetrion, Liu Kang, Joker, and Fujin. for me, they are the top 5 in the game right now, and they were arguably that beforehand. But they have really benefited from customs in the same way that every other character has, but they're also like still, you know, they're still up there. They're still
strong.
Well. If I was forced to pick, I would say that I actually think Cetrion might be number 1. I think she has no flaws.
Still, so do you think we're going to see a sea of Cetrions, of Jackies, of Sonyas?
We are already seeing a sea of Cetrions. I think Jackie, we're not seeing... No one is picking up Jackie that didn't already play her. The big thing about Jackie is her best variation got better, because there's a version you can pick of it now that's a bit different to before, but it's way better. It's more effective. It's the Hyper Leap and the Air Shrapnel Amplify, which really gives her the kind of super jump and crazy offense shenanigans. But beforehand, the variation was called Upgraded, and she had a Ground Pound, which was a low, so it gave her mix-ups, but it was unsafe. It was punishable on block. Now, people are taking Grenade Launcher, which is like a blue fire cannon almost that just puts fire on the ground, and if the opponent stands in it, they take unavoidable damage over time, which goes through Last Breath, it annihilates the chip damage, it's damage over time, and it gives her massive damage output. So a lot of existing Jackie players have just moved to that variation for now, because it's very similar to what they were playing before. Muscle memory-wise, it's not that different. Whereas a lot of people have moved to Cetrion that were kind of barely playing her before, are now playing her and seeing a lot of success. Like, she is a problem character.
And we're going to see, and you still believe that we're still going to see a flood of these characters?
I mean, we are in the process of seeing a lot of that. You know, at least with the open series, we've seen both those characters at least used by 2 people every week across both regions. And then you take community events, and we're still seeing that too. I mean, it's definitely... It's the teething process of a new version of the game, so I think a lot of players are kind of sticking to what they knew. But
but
at least first impressions, like, they are looking extremely strong.
But I'm hoping now that with the introduction of custom variations, that people will attempt to counterpick those, and then create custom variations to actually beat those. And I'm hoping that we introduce this.
But unfortunately, it's not really looking like that's the case. What I think we can see now, and I'm not the kind of guy to be like, if something's good, nerf it, but because custom variations are the way forward, that also gives NetherRealm a lot more tools to balance. So the biggest problem with Cetrion is she has this ultimate one-size-fits-all variation. She's one of the few characters in the game that absolutely, I would say, has a definitive best variation that you have very little reason to swap away from. It's the Teleport, which is really strong for a character like her. Tornado, which is a restand and armor break, and Ground Pound, which is like a full screen tracking projectile that you have to respect. Without going into too much detail, it's an incredible variation, and it kind of does everything that she needs and more. Now, that goes against custom variations. So let's say, hypothetically, down the line, that is the only variation we see for Cetrion, and it kind of stops customs being necessary for her, because there is literally no point using anything else. Then that's where you look at that one variation and you adjust it, you nerf it. Whether it's, you know, make one of the moves that it gets cost 2 slots, so you can't have all 3. Maybe there's a, you know, you make certain inputs collide, so you can't use them together. Maybe you just ban certain combinations, which has been a thing they've done before. I feel like you have more tools to make it normalized without absolutely annihilating the rest of her kit in the process.
Without kind of overhauling her.
Indeed.
So go on, who do you think the worst character in the game would be?
Honestly, before I say anything, I don't think any character in this game is bad. I just think there has to be a low tier by default. Right?
Cool.
By
Okay.
pure definition,
Yeah, of course.
there has to be a low tier.
Not everyone's.
I don't think. Yeah, exactly. I don't think any character in this game is terrible. I think every character can win. It's just some characters have more rough matchups that require other characters. I do still think that on paper alone, I do think that Shao Kahn.
I knew you'd say it. I genuinely knew you'd say it.
But it's hard for me to say, because I don't even think he's bad. It's just what holds him back are quite big problems to have in this game.
Go on.
So the biggest problem for him is his punish game is not great. His fastest button is a 9-frame standing 1, which in this game is a big deal. So he has a 9-frame standing 1 as his fastest high, and because he's a big character, it's a really high angled high. And his fastest mid is a 10-frame forward 3, which is the fastest mid in the game is 9 frames, so a 10-frame mid is really good. The problem is his mid is really unsafe to use. It goes into 2 hits, there's a massive gap, it's unsafe on block. You can flawless block it to kill him every time. You know, there are built-in options that you can really deal with it. So his best button has a massive risk, and his fastest punish is not a great punish option. But to make up for that, he has incredible utility. He's got amazing armor break. His damage is through the roof.
Yeah.
His range is insane. He's got some of the best pokes in the game. It's just the fact that his mid is really hard to rely on and his punish game is kind of weak really holds him back. But even then, not to the point that we don't see him work, right? There are Shao Kahn players that are still out there that are still doing well in tournaments. Like, he's still proven to be good. It's just, he's a lot of work. He is very hard work. And also flawless blocks. Like, a lot of his best strings have gaps in that you can flawless block and kill him for it, which makes even pressing normal buttons quite a risk for him.
So on that note, with with it being harder to make Shao Kahn work, do you see players shying away from that, or do you tend to see, for example, the mid tiers, that people stick with them and grind with them, or do you see from your perspective, if they're low, I'm not really going to put that effort in, and they kind of get put by the wayside?
To be honest, a lot of players will kind of stick to their characters no matter what anyway. I just think Shao Kahn was never a popular character in the competitive scene. Like, even back at launch, before anyone knew how good anyone was, I could name less than 5 Shao Kahn players that were playing him at the start, and it just never really changed. And a lot of people haven't gone to Shao Kahn either since, like, all the patches, because he's basically been buffed in every patch as well, so he's been improved a lot too.
Oh god. Imagine what it's like when he first started.
You know how it is in fighting games, right? A lot of people, they just, even if characters change around them in big ways, a lot of people are kind of just, they're shackled to who they want to play.
Yeah.
And they're not going to deviate away from that very much, right? Come DLC or whatever it is, you don't always see people change over in that kind of style. And
yeah.
I think a lot of people just don't, even with the changes, not a lot of people pick up new characters for that.
Yeah, I agree with you actually. I've persisted with Shao Kahn, and I've got demotivated at times where I've just been beaten to the punch pretty much every time. You move away from him. I went to a quicker character like Jade to try and do a bit more, get me more aerial, but a bit more finesse. And then you go back and go forth and go back and go forth. And I think, again, the reason why I'm doing this series is to try to help me break through that, to understand a bit more about the character, use the mechanics to my advantage, and then go back to that, to Shao Kahn. Because I love everything about Shao Kahn. He's the lore about him, his size, his character.
Cool character.
Yeah, he's a great character. And that, for me, is what I look for when I'm looking at a different character in any fighting game. Who do I like? Who do I like the look of? Who do I gravitate to? I like his moves. Let me make it work. But I have to really work with Shao Kahn, and you've got to trade off. Do you know what? Is he cool enough to make it work? So that's where I am right now with characters like Shao Kahn.
Well, I think now is a good time to go back, because there might be, again, it kind of comes down to customs, but there might be specific moves that really fill that gap that you think only Shao Kahn can do. The biggest problem we had before is there wasn't really much reason to pick him. Like, if you wanted a big body that does tremendous damage, pick Spawn. If you want someone that does a massive amount of damage with the range of the buttons he has, pick Kotal Kahn.
Yep.
Like, there are characters that would do what he did that didn't have his problems. The real question now is, though, like, again, thanks to customs, he has one of the best armor breaks in the game. His air spear skewered is one of the best armor breaks as far as I'm concerned. He still has massive damage. He has good range, so there's maybe a bit more you can do with him now. It's just a question of whether it's enough to warrant picking him up.
Yeah, to keep pushing. Last question for me is what is next for you? What's next for Mustard? What can we look out for? I know you've been doing the PS tournament, the PS4 tournaments, and such delights, but what's on the agenda for yourself?
So right now, at the time of this recording anyway, I don't know exactly when this is going up, but we are doing a weekly series. This is the Open series with PlayStation. We've been doing that for the past, going into 7 months now, in fact, of a weekly tournament. So we actually just finished our 60th broadcast the other day, so it's been a busy year.
60, mate. But, fair play to you.
60th, yeah.
Wow.
60th. We're very happy about that. But no, that's been a weekly thing on Twitch.
Hard work, mate.
PlayStation. But we are content creators first and foremost. Both Ketchup and myself. He does the YouTube, I do the Twitch. I'm live at least 5 days a week, twitch.tv/PND KandM. That's where I'm found most of the time, streaming all sorts of games nowadays, but a bit more of a variety direction with, a focus on Mortal Kombat.
What other games do you do?
At least a couple of times a week. Just all sorts, honestly. Ketchup does a lot of Quake. He does a Quake commentary for the Quake Pro League. He does a lot of Doom Eternal as well, but just variety, right? Like, as and when things come out, we do a lot of kind of, at least on the Twitch, I do a lot of those kind of really hard melee combat games, the Dark Souls series, Soulsborne, From Software stuff. That's been going down quite well. As well as a lot of kind of zombie survival, Left 4 Dead, kind of GTFO, Vermintide. We have our genres that we like, and our audience likes watching them. So we're very fortunate and happy about that. But that's where we are most of the time, right? We still do a lot of commentary work as and when, but for the most part, it is that content life. Especially now we're all at home, putting a lot more time into that content than we previously could. It's it's been a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy checking out what we do.
Well, listen, I don't think there's going to be a person on earth that's going to argue with that, mate. You know what I mean? Everyone knows that you're putting quality content. You can
I hope not.
definitely see that day in, day out, and putting the hard work. And definitely yourself and your brother, you're stalwarts of the Mortal Kombat scene. But it's not just Mortal Kombat, like you said. And your hard work shows in what you do, not only online, but again, just before, unfortunately, this whole virus situation happened, taking your time to do the stuff in Leicester as well. Everyone knows that you're busy, and
I am looking forward to the time that we can bring locals back. I've missed the Hyper Combo crew so bad.
Right.
I miss Will, I miss all the regular guys, I miss Pete, Callum, uni students, like all the in between. Omar, I would list off all the names, but I'll be here for a while, and then I'll forget one, and I feel bad about it, so I'll stop there.
Stop now.
But no, I'm looking forward to when locals
will be back.
Because I am hankering for offline fighting games.
I think we all are, mate. I think we all are. We just need to get out, and we need to. Humans are our best socialising, so we will be there one day. As always, again, thank you very much for your time. I know I found it very, very helpful. I know I'll be going in the lab, and I'm also going to ask for some cheeky games now. We're going to stop recording, so if you've got 5 minutes, mate, let's get some sneaky games in. But listen, again, thank you very much for your time, and best of luck with your endeavours. 60. Do you see another 60 going forward now? Another 60 episodes going forward?
So, I mean, not through Open Series, probably, because that's like 7 months of competition. But, Pro Competition Season 2 has been announced, and, we can't say who's commentating it yet because, it's not my decision, but, watch this space and await further announcements. Let's
keep an eye out. Well, on that note, I'm going to say again, thank you very much for your time, sir, and we will definitely speak soon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.